As an Indigenous Australian, I've always been confused when I see white Australians complaining about immigration. Because the only people who are true to this country and the only people who have a cultural connection to this country and cultural history are Indigenous Australians. It's the audacity for them to tell people to go back to where they came from. Like, do they remember how they got here? You guys are immigrants too. You've just been here longer. I support anybody who wants to come here and create a better life for themselves and their families, because they're not doing anything wrong. They're coming over here, they're working hard, they're studying, they're creating a better life for themselves and their family. Like, what's wrong with that? And not only that, they're bringing their skill set. Like, immigration is important for this economy. I don't think people realize that. They don't actually look into that. Like, immigration is important for the Australian economy. And you know what I noticed? They never complain about white immigrants. They never ever complain about an immigrant from a European country. They only ever complain about brown or black immigrants. Period. I'm telling you, I swear on everything. I've never ever seen anybody, especially the white Australians, I've never complained about another white immigrant. Only the brown ones. I'm telling you, it's true. At the end of the day, it's not immigration that's the issue. It's racism. That's all it comes down to, and nobody can tell me any different. Period.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're breaking down what happened in Australia on August 31st during the so-called March for Australia. Anti-immigration rallies went down in cities like Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane, and people are waking up to what this really was: a gathering of white supremacist racism dressed up as concerned citizens, in quotes. But let's watch and we'll be back with commentary.
I take my child to the playground and every single other child at the playground is speaking a foreign language to their parent. My child is the only child at the playground that's speaking English. And I'm surrounded by people that are being told, oh, this is a great multicultural diversity, and it just means less white people, less white culture, and ultimately we're going to turn into global South Africa. And I will fight to stop that from happening. I had family in South Africa. I'm not letting it happen here. And so I'm trying with all my might to be peaceful and reasonable and political, but we have to protect white Australia. We have to.
Literally don't know where to start. There's so many things to destroy in this argument. Oh my gosh, boo-hoo. Oh, your child's the only person who speaks a different language from all the other people around them. Sounds insensitive to say it like that, right? You can't be like, oh, Australia has to be literally just all white, and I don't like it that my child goes to the playground and no one speaks the same language. No, you know what? Instead of upgrading and being more inclusive and understanding, hey, this is my culture, this is your culture, let's come together. No. How about your culture just leaves, okay? So everyone looks and sounds like me. Because I don't want it to look like South Africa. That's what he said. Keep in mind the apartheid and all that other stuff that happened. It's almost like it was the black people's land, and then the white dudes went over there and did their thing and took it over. Nelson Mandela and all that stuff happened. And then he's saying, I don't want it to be like that. He's basically inferring that the South Africans had land, they had power, and then they lost it to the blacks, even though it was their land to begin with. Ironic that it's sort of like the same mindset that he has with Australia. It was Indigenous peoples, and then the white people got it, occupied it, and now he's angry that it's becoming diverse and multicultural, which is not even to the degree he's saying. Look, everyone should live in harmony. Some places have more white people, some places have more black people, okay? It's okay to have different cultures. We're not trying to take it from you. And if we were, rightfully so, you couldn't even be mad because you took it from someone else. Or goes around, comes back around, or karma. Not that I believe in karma, but you get what I'm saying. Imagine saying that. Oh, I'm going to walk little Timmy. Oh my gosh, no one's black around here. Oh, it's the government's fault. And you know what? Even though it's the government's fault, I actually hate it that everyone's speaking a different language than this language, okay? Our language is the best language. It's the superior one. And I don't like it that we don't have our own place. So all you other families who have come from hardship, all you other families come from hardship and have had a tough time migrating and assimilating, guess what? I actually don't think you belong here, even though this is pretty much stolen land. And you know what? I feel unfairly done. Yes, it was taken from you, but I want my people to have it. Talk about the irrational mindset.
What are you here for?
No, I'm here for my children, to stand up for my children, to stand up for our country. That's it.
What do you think is going wrong in the country?
Wow. We don't have time for that right now.
If not now, when? All right, so what's the most important issue to you?
It's my children.
Your children, that's it?
Yeah.
I just saw the best thing today I've ever seen. It was Old Australian men hate immigrants until it's a young Asian girl. Until it's a young Asian girl that they want to marry. Sorry.
I hope now, after all the footage that's been released from yesterday, we can all recognise what those March for Australia rallies were really about. People tried to claim that it was about mass immigration. I saw people saying that it wasn't even about immigration in general, it's about mass immigration. And yet from all the different videos that came out of yesterday, from all the different sources, there's like no videos talking about resources, the housing crisis, the cost of living crisis, the employment crisis. You know what there are a lot of videos of? From a lot of different sources, neo-Nazis leading all of these protests. Neo-Nazis talking about white pride and white Australia, and we need to take this country back for white Australia and the white man. Neo-Nazis literally attacking people at these protests. They were violent protests. There is even footage of neo-Nazis storming an Aboriginal sovereign camp and attacking the elders and women there. There are women and elders in hospital after this event. These rallies were never about immigration. They were always going to be used as an opportunity to push racist and fascist ideologies. And I think it's important that we recognize that, and we recognize these rallies for what they were, because they weren't just an average Australian going out to protest for the betterment of the country or our community. These protests didn't come from a place of care or concern for our country. They came from a place of white supremacy. And in a multicultural country like Australia, there is simply no room for racism. Australia has never been and will never be a white country. Like, don't forget that this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. This country has black roots. And in today's age, we're lucky enough to have so many diverse cultures that live here. Australia is so much of a multicultural melting pot that it simply will never be a white country.
Just a reminder that immigrants belong here because of their personhood. The value of POCs does not lie in the value we provide to you. It's not because we do your nails or we serve you food from our culture or we drive you around. That is not what makes POCs valuable. Immigrants have a right to belong, and that's not based on the value they provide the economy or to your personal life.
The only people attending the so-called March for Australia, or should I say anti-immigration protests, are racists, white supremacists, and people who have fallen for extremist propaganda. That's it. You can't convince me otherwise.
But notice how every time a white person complains about immigrants, they never talk about white immigrants. They only talk about brown or black immigrants. Period. I'm telling you, brown, black, or any person of colour that's an immigrant, only they get complained about. They never complain about any white person from Europe. One thing I can say is I've never been in harm's way from any person of colour that's an immigrant. I've only been physically attacked by white immigrants. A couple of years ago in my hometown, we had the British and Irish coming through. They'd tick off something on their visa. Well, one night after the pub, I actually got jumped for being gay. Yep, I got physically attacked by multiple people just for being gay. And I had to stand there and fight these white immigrants. I've never had that happen from any person of colour that's an immigrant. Only white immigrants. But I'm not going to hold that against all the white immigrants. Because you know what? Sometimes you come across cunts and sometimes you come across good people. But it's not fair to blame all immigrants for some small negative. Like, come on now, like, that's stupid, that's weird. And imagine me blaming them saying, no, you done this because you're an immigrant. What? That don't make no sense. Why would I blame all immigrants for them? Like, that don't make no sense. Because a lot of them I actually had fun with. Period. Party on the weekends, you know what I mean? Why would I take a small negative thing and blame everybody else? Just for two people. Why would I do that? That don't make no sense. So why are people doing this to people of colour? A lot of people like to focus on negative things. How about you focus on negative things with your country first? Because one thing about it, a lot of white people like to think of the negatives when it comes to people of colour. Period. And I know that because I'm Aboriginal and we always copy shit. We always copying it. We can't do shit. We do the same things as them too. We're going out to drink, we're going out to party, but no, it's a bad thing when we do it, but it's a good thing when they do it. Like, they only think about the negative things, but they never think about themselves. And they only ever complain about immigrants or people of colour. Period. They never complain about the white immigrants from Europe. They never do that, ever. I've never seen that in my life. Because, I mean, if you're really going to focus on negatives, focus on how white Australians treat Indigenous people first. Focus on that negative. And then you can talk about immigrants. And one thing these racist white Aussies need to remember is that they're immigrants too. They've just been here longer.
I think it's crazy how on August 31st, white Australians are marching to protect Australia and to take Australia back, as if they weren't immigrants. You know, as if their ancestors weren't immigrants. As if they don't have a shared history of being colonized by Britain with other countries such as India, Pakistan, all that. Like, sorry, but if UK immigrants and US immigrants are allowed, then all immigrants should be allowed, because at the end of the day, this march isn't about immigrants in general. It's about immigrants with skin colour. Immigrants who do not look like this. And I'm sorry, but that's ridiculous. Because the only people who have any right to tell anyone to go back to their own country in this country is the Indigenous people, the First Nations people, whether they have melanin in their skin or they are white skin like me. Yeah, part of the stolen generations, the second ones. So, all those people marching for Australia, for Australian culture, why don't you go back to your own country? If your culture, which is all a bastardization of English culture anyway, is so important to you, go back to your own country. Go back to your ancestors' country. Half the population these days are at best second generation Australian citizens. Okay, their grandparents. At best, their great-grandparents were immigrants. And a lot of the Irish and Scottish immigrants were slaves. They weren't just prisoners, they were bought slaves of Britain. So why don't you go back to there if it's so important to you? Sorry, is what it is. And if you don't like multiculturalism, don't go to Mexican restaurants or Chinese restaurants or Japanese restaurants. You can't eat sushi, even the Australian version of sushi. Like, I'm eating Indian right now. I'm eating butter chicken. You can't have that. Sauce was bought in Coles. Can't have that. Done by immigrants. So, sorry, but if you're going to complain about immigrants, you're going to complain about multiculturalism, then anything to do with immigrants, whether it was made by immigrants, whatever, don't do it. You're not allowed to participate in it. You're not allowed to partake in it. It's as simple as that. And if you don't believe me that multiculturalism has been a thing in Australia since before it was founded, I invite you to go back to the gold rush era in history. Guess who was there? Chinese, Japanese, some Indian, some Islamic people. Australia has been a multicultural country since before Australia was even a country. And I'm sorry, but if you want to go around saying that you're better than immigrants, well then, how about you understand the fact that, unlike Australia, India celebrates their own Independence Day, because unlike Australia, we have broken off from Britain. They've broken off from Britain. Sorry. India is no longer a British colony. Australia still is. That's why we still have the Union Jack on the flag. And that's why for the first half of Australia's history as a country, the Australian flag was nothing but the Union Jack. Why? Because they were seen as England. Now we're just seen as an English colony in the Commonwealth. So we're not even our own country with our own culture. No. We are a bastardized culture of English culture with the English flag on our flag. And unlike some of the nations where some of our immigrants come from, we still are a British colony. So check yourself, check your history, and shut the fuck up.
You invaded this country, you stole the land, you encouraged genocide. You are the one that are privileged from it. You are guilty. Grandfathers have original, bro. There's a lot of them that were troopers and shot us.
If you're protesting August 31st, go back to your own country. Go back to your own country and protest there. Talk about immigration there. Don't talk about immigration policies in this country here when this is a multicultural country. And that is how colonialism works, guys. When your people colonize a country, there's not enough people from the other country that did the colonizing to come here. That is why we have a multicultural country. Look at the US. It's like it's not registering to people, but UK immigrants are allowed here, right? South African immigrants are allowed here, right? And why are you guys the ones telling people to go back to your own country? I've been told to go back to my own country in this country. This is my fucking country, dog.
Can the people that attended the March for Australia rallies yesterday even spell the word immigration? Like, can you actually spell the word immigration? Do you know how to spell that? And you can't cheat and use Google. Go on, spell it. That's the first thing we need to address.
So first off, this wasn't just your average protest, right? We saw neo-Nazis, folks chanting Australia for the white man, and one group even attacked Camp Sovereignty in an Indigenous sacred site using sticks and poles to swing at men and women and elders, right? That is hate on display with no sugarcoating. And the slogans, send them home, white unity, these aren't coded, right? They're direct acts of intimidation towards immigrants, refugees, and Aboriginal communities. It's sad, right? But important that folks are now calling out mainstream Australia for enabling this hate, not just some fringe extremists. Right? But look, I get that we all have frustrations, but hate never builds communities. It just destroys them. So I'm asking, what happened to calling it out for what it is? Right? Were those flags, were those speeches, the violence, were all of those just Australian protesters, or are they something more dangerous that we must take seriously? Right? I want to know, what do you guys think? But anyways, thanks for listening. If you're with me on this, hit that like button, drop a comment, especially if you have family or friends in Australia who have felt unsafe, or subscribe so you're here for the real talk, okay? Also, this is all commentary, educational purposes only, no hate, just conversation. As usual, I'll see you on my next one.